Hello again. Thank you very much for joining me here on Movie Ninja. Tonight I'm going to be talking about Major Grom, Plague Doctor. So, what we have with Major Grom, Plague Doctor, is oddly enough one of the most impressive superhero, non superhero movies that I've seen in a very long time. What do I mean by that? So, Major Grom, Plague Doctor, despite what the name implies, that Major Grom is the Plague Doctor or is this vigilante that you see in the advertisements and whatnot, Major Grom is a metropolitan police officer, and the Plague Doctor is the primary antagonist of the film. Now, Major Grom, from what we see, is kind of a salute. He's a bit of a wink and nod to some of the super cop characters of the 1980s and mid 90s. But unlike a lot of those characters, he doesn't have a contempt to be a servant of the law. So what do I mean by that? Where is that coming from? So you take certain characters. I'm going to put out there Dirty Harry. And yes, I have seen all of the Dirty Harry films. And a lot of these Dirty Harry or copy paste Steven Seagal type characters is that they claim to be servants of the law, but really they have outright contempt for it. And they just do things their own way. And they're allowed to do things their own way because they get results. Major Grom is not someone who goes against the grain because he really wants to. In fact, despite all of appearances of being an impulsive show-off, he actually is a very deliberative and meditative police officer when it comes to apprehending dangerous criminals. He actually goes through multiple scenarios mentally as he approaches different criminals like that. So he's our primary antagonist. Very likable guy. The film does a very good job of establishing who he is in the very beginning of the film. And then we move on to our antagonist, the Plague Doctor. Now, who is the Plague Doctor? He is a character that is he's... I hesitate to call him a super villain. But even though he labels himself as a vigilante and a champion of justice, no, he is the absolute worst, brutal type of vigilante, possible. Because the way that the Plague Doctor sees the benefit to society is to satisfy his own anger. And he does this by punishing who he sees as criminals. And to be fair, the movie also does outline his victims as genuine corrupt criminals. These are corrupt individuals that have used their power and their prestige. I'm trying to stay out of spoilers, but it is hard to argue with the average person that these people aren't evildoers. But that being said, it's very clear as we get into the film that this is not someone who does what he does for the furtherment of justice or the betterment of society. He's doing this out of anger. And he takes it to the extreme degree that he takes it to murder. Sorry. I mean, it's not really a spoiler because, it's apparent from the get-go that this is someone who is really just doing these things to satisfy or placate his own anger with society. I've noticed that a lot of people are actually describing him similar to V for Vendetta. Some similarity. Little bit of a pushback for myself is that V was not necessarily doing what he was doing to satisfy a revenge fetish. Yes, that was part of he was getting revenge for himself on key people. But he was going up against an entire despotic regime. He was going up against a tyrannical dictatorship that was poisoning, that was overwhelmingly harming that society. The Plague Doctor wants hero worship. And he wants hero worship because he is a violent individual. And he is an example, a deconstruction of the heroic. vigilante that we often see in superhero films, in media. The idea of the vigilante is usually tolerated because these characters usually follow a creed or a code of do no harm. Yeah, they might crack a jaw, or they might, knock the criminals down for the count, but theoretically. And we've all seen those videos online. It's like, oh yeah, what actually happens when Captain America punches somebody? What actually happens when Batman, like those comic videos that put it out there. Yeah, some of the Batman gadgets probably aren't non-lethal, but nonetheless, the characters do strive for non-lethality as much as possible. For the Plague Doctor, no. He does take it to the extreme. So, Major Grom, Plague Doctor, very good antithesis to one another. They're very good foes. So, then we actually have a few side characters. Major Grom, another thing that I like about this film is that it doesn't put out there that he is invincible and he can do everything on his own. He can't. In fact, he is flanked by a social justice influencer. She captures people doing crime. This young woman captures people doing crimes on her smartphone, and then she posts it to her social media network, essentially to get views. In her mind, she's making an impact, but it's clear that she's doing this for vanity's sake. And he is also supported by a young up-and-coming detective. And initially, I thought the actor was a kid doing a report for his local high school. Hey. Like, I did... Look at it this way, okay? It all evens out. When this guy... Like, when I turn 40, people were really like, man, he looks like he's 60 years old already. When this baby face turns 30, or when he turns 60, he's gonna look way younger. So you know what? It all balances out. Anyways, I'm not knocking the guy for having a baby face, but I did think he was like a kid. I thought he was supposed to be like a local high school fanboy who just follows him around on doing cases. Anyways, not to get too far off topic, but okay. So we have Major Grom and his sidekicks, his assistants. We have the Plague Doctor and his extreme use of violence as a way to gain followers as well as to satisfy his own anger. Now, another thing I really like about this film is its pacing. You have the setup of the characters, you have the conflict, resolution. But wait a second, Movie Ninja, isn't that the basic primary aspect of all storytelling? Storytelling can be outlined and fulfilled in a number of different ways. That's the bare bones way, but sometimes, y'all, simple is best. And so the pacing is so tight and it's so good. This film is a little over 2 hours long and you don't feel it. And when it comes to those films like Terminator 2 or Mad Max Fury Road, and they end and it does not even feel like you sat through 2 hours. The only thing that I will say, like the only time I was checking the time on my on Netflix was simply because I was like, oh, please don't end now. Yes, okay, there's more. It's like, okay. Keep going, because there were a few occasions where I was a bit concerned. I was worried that it was going to end just because I was having fun just watching the movie. So the characterization is actually really well balanced. The pacing is tight. And overall, this was, if I have to make a parallel to something, or to something rather grand on a franchise scale, I will say that this is one of the most MCU movies that has absolutely nothing to do with the MCU. It has nothing to do with superheroism. So, like, Major Grom doesn't get to go toe-to-toe with the Plague Doctor because he gets some superpowers or something like that. No, he just has to use his own skill set, detective skills, ingenuity, and initiative to bring down this incredibly violent criminal. And the criminal, when it comes right down to it, is I love complexity. The best Marvel villains have complexity to them. So the villain, from about the midpoint, we think we understand, but the villain turns out to be much more layered than expected, and I appreciate that. So, before I begin to repeat myself, Makor Grom gets a very high recommendation for me. Numerically, I give it a solid 7 out of 10. I believe most people that watch this, that want to watch something akin to a good old-fashioned 1980s, mid-90s cop action thriller with a little bit of a superhero vibe will really, really enjoy this movie. So, that's my recommendation. It is a 7 out of 10. Really good. And before I end this video, I also have to mention something. I want to say thank you, of course, to all of my new subscribers. I was overwhelmed with the response to my last video. Thank you very much for all the support. Thank you very much for your patience. I have to say that, like, this is not going to be the norm, one video per month. No. So without going too much into detail, this last month was very difficult for myself and my family. And I know that when people start to become content creators, a lot of them will say, like, hey, you can't stop, just gotta go. No, I'm doing this, I'm doing these reviews, I set up this channel to have fun. And this is like, this is a good outlet for me just to be able to put my ideas out there. And when my family needs me, yeah, there's probably going to be a delay. There's going to be like pauses. The saying goes, and it's a bit cliche, but life happens, and you just have to deal with it the best that we can. So, but I appreciate everyone's patience. I appreciate the support, certainly. Thank you very much, and I hope that you take some time just to enjoy Makor Grom. It is available right now on Netflix. And it is a great action movie. There we go. I'm already being redundant. Sorry about that. If you made it all the way to the very end of this video, you are a champ, and thank you very much. Have you seen the film? What are your thoughts on it? I'd be interested to hear that in the comments. So, thank you very much again for tuning in here to Movie Ninja, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.